Hi, this is Kirsten from Your Happier Homeschool. I'm glad you joined me today. I want to talk about anxiety and beliefs because by nature, I'm a very anxious person, and for many years, I was an anxious homeschooler. I was also really rigid and fervent in my beliefs. I began homeschooling with a strong unschooling bent and a lot of Waldorf-y tendencies. I believed in free writing, creative expression, slow days, and experiential learning. My kids and I spent a lot of time visiting farms and learning through life rather than formal education. And to be clear, we still do a lot of those things. We still hike, we still visit farms, we still volunteer. What changed wasn't that, it was the level of rigor. Rigor in how I taught, my standards. Something unexpected happened, and my anxiety began to drop when I started homeschooling with more rigor. Let me back up. I've been homeschooling about 15 years. I have 2 kids. I'm also a charter teacher, a writing coach, an executive function coach, and a tutor. And I've worked with many kids beyond my own. I'm also a longtime entrepreneur, so I bring systems thinking and long-range planning into how I teach. One of my kids chose to enter high school after homeschooling through 8th grade. And that experience shaped a lot of what I chose to do next, with my second kid and with my students. My goal became preparing kids for any eventuality. If they want to go to school, they should be able to enter seamlessly and, frankly, overqualified. A lot of that comes down to solid executive function skills and rigorous writing instruction. In my family, when I relied primarily on my kids' interests and preferences, I was anxious all the time. I no longer believe that if students are simply given free rein, they'll naturally learn everything they need to know. I've come to think of unschooling as kind of overly permissive. People sometimes say kids will learn self-regulation if they're given unlimited access to technology, for example. In my experience, that's not how most kids work. Oftentimes, you give them free rein and you get all Roblox all the time. I believe it's our responsibility as adults to decide what knowledge matters. So now I teach rigorously. I use structured curriculum for history, grammar, literature, math, and social studies. I teach my own writing curriculum to my kids and my students. And when I started doing this, becoming more rigorous, I began to trust that learning was actually happening. That trust is what reduced my anxiety. So I care deeply about grade level. I want my kids and the kids I teach to be able to enter any classroom if they choose, without gaps or scrambling. My older kid tested into a private school on a full scholarship after only 2 years of rerouting toward rigor, following years of unschooling. Rigor creates margin. Margin creates calm. When you have a rock-solid foundation, you can take breaks without fear. But when your foundation isn't solid, everything feels fragile, and that creates anxiety. I know this isn't the prevailing wisdom. We're supposed to be making magic. We're supposed to be following our kids' lead. But I think it's important to convey what we adults think is important and teach our kids both habits and content. Otherwise, at least for me, I felt very anxious. Allowing my kids' whims to dictate what they learned and how they learned was a recipe for disaster in my homeschool. When I embraced rigor, everything changed. So I'm curious what homeschooling looks like for you. What's your guiding philosophy at home? How do you choose what you're going to teach? I think this is an incredibly interesting topic, and I would love to hear what it's like in your house. Please drop a comment below. And if you're curious what curricula I use, or if you're curious about executive function coaching or rigorous, joyful writing, please give a shout. I'd love to talk. Until then, have a great day. I'm glad you tuned in, and I believe in you. I know you can do this. Bye-bye.